The Stellar Accord was the largest space station ever built. It floated in the darkness between stars, a massive ring of metal and glass, where hundreds of alien species came to talk instead of fight. Park Do-hyun had worked there for 3 years, but he still felt small every time he walked through its endless halls. He was a translator, not an important one. Not the kind who stood next to ambassadors and whispered in their ears during big meetings. He was the kind who sat in back rooms, reading old documents and helping with minor trade agreements. He was 28 years old, average height, with a quiet face that people often forgot. This suited him fine. Do-hyun had learned long ago that being forgotten was sometimes the safest way to survive. Today was different. Today was the opening ceremony of the Galactic Assembly, and every translator was needed. The Valori Empire and the Kreth Dominion were meeting to discuss peace after 300 years of Cold War. If these talks failed, half the galaxy would burn. Do-hyun adjusted his uniform and walked toward the Great Hall. The corridor was filled with aliens of every shape and size. Tall, insect-like Terran clicked past him on 6 legs. Floating Syrinx drifted by in their water-filled suits. Small, furry Moken scurried between legs, chattering in their high-pitched language. Do-hyun knew phrases in all their tongues. Languages came easily to him. People did not. Do-hyun. A sharp voice cut through the noise. He turned to see Kang Jisoo pushing through the crowd. She was 50 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and eyes that had seen too many negotiations go wrong. She was his supervisor, and one of the few people who remembered his name. "Where have you been?" she demanded, grabbing his arm. "The ceremony starts in 10 minutes. I was reviewing the Valori greeting protocols." "Forget protocols. Listen to me carefully." Her voice dropped to a whisper. Her fingers dug into his sleeve. "The Valori Queen is attending personally. This almost never happens. Do you understand what that means?" Do-hyun nodded slowly. The Valori were ancient. They had built empires when humans were still living in caves. Their queen was said to be over 2,000 years old, a being of immense telepathic power who viewed other species the way humans viewed insects. "Whatever you do," Jisoo continued, "stay away from her. Do not make eye contact. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not even breathe in her direction if you can help it." "Has something happened?" Jisoo's face grew pale. "She killed 3 diplomats this cycle. 3. The official reports say they threatened her, but nobody really knows. Humans are not equipped to handle the Valori, Do-hyun. Our minds are too fragile. One wrong thought, and she could turn your brain into soup. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Now get inside and stay in the back. Be invisible. That is your job today." Do-hyun did as he was told. He always did. The Great Hall was a wonder of engineering. Its ceiling was transparent, showing the endless stars above. Thousands of seats rose in circles around a central platform where the speakers would stand. Do-hyun found a spot near the back wall, behind a pillar, where he could see without being seen. The hall filled quickly. He watched ambassadors take their places. Humans in neat, gray uniforms, Kreth in their black armor, their forearms folded across their chests, their red eyes scanning the room with obvious contempt. The Kreth were conquerors. They believed strength was the only truth in the universe. Then the lights dimmed slightly, and a hush fell over the crowd. The Valori had arrived. They entered through a side door, moving like ghosts. There were 12 of them, tall and slender, their skin glowing with soft blue and purple light. They had no hair. Their heads were smooth and elegant, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. They wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid silver, flowing around their bodies like living things. But it was the one in the center who drew every eye. Queen Seraphiel. She was taller than the others, nearly 7 feet, and her glow was brighter, shifting through colors that Do-hyun had no names for. She moved with absolute confidence, each step precise and deliberate. Her 4 eyes swept across the assembly, and wherever her gaze landed, people looked away. Do-hyun watched her from his hiding spot behind the pillar. He knew he should look down like everyone else. He knew the smart thing was to be invisible, just as Jisoo had ordered. But something stopped him. It was her face. Everyone saw power there, and danger, and the cold arrogance of an ancient ruler. Do-hyun saw those things too. But he also saw something else. Something hidden beneath the mask. She looked tired, not physically tired. Something deeper. The kind of exhaustion that came from carrying a weight for so long that you forgot what it felt like to stand straight. Do-hyun recognized that look. He had seen it in his mother's eyes during the hard years after his father died. He had seen it in refugees fleeing destroyed colonies. He had seen it in his own mirror, on the darkest nights. The queen was not just powerful. She was alone. The ceremony began. Speeches were made. Do-hyun listened with half an ear, his eyes still drawn to the Valori queen. She sat perfectly still on her elevated seat, acknowledging the speakers with small nods, her expression revealing nothing. An hour passed. Then another. Do-hyun's legs grew tired, but he did not move. During a break between speeches, something changed. The queen stirred. Her 4 eyes moved slowly across the hall, searching for something. Do-hyun felt a strange pressure in his head, like fingers brushing against his thoughts. He should have been afraid. Every instinct told him to hide, to look away, to make himself small and forgettable. He did not. He met her gaze. For a long moment, nothing happened. The pressure in his head grew stronger, probing, questioning. Do-hyun did not try to hide his thoughts. He had nothing to hide. He was nobody important. He was just a man who had seen a tired queen and felt sorry for her. The queen's eyes widened slightly. It was a tiny movement, barely visible. But Do-hyun caught it. Something had surprised her. Then she stood. The hall fell silent. Standing during a break was not protocol. The queen should have remained seated until the final ceremony. She descended from her platform, her silver robes flowing behind her. The other Valori moved to follow, but she raised one hand and they stopped. Guards tensed. Diplomats whispered in confusion. The queen walked through the crowd. People scrambled to get out of her way. She passed the human delegation, past the Kreth commanders, past ambassadors who had spent decades trying to get a single audience with her. She stopped in front of Do-hyun. He stood frozen behind his pillar, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. The queen looked down at him with her 4 strange eyes. Up close, her glow was almost blinding, and the pressure in his mind was overwhelming. "You," she said. Her voice was like music and thunder combined. "You looked at me without fear, without greed. Why?" Do-hyun swallowed. His voice came out rough and unsteady. "You looked like you needed someone to not want something from you, Your Majesty." The entire hall held its breath. The queen's glow shifted, colors rippling across her skin like emotions she could not control. For 1,000 years, she had been surrounded by people who wanted her power, her favor, her death. No one had ever simply seen her. "What is your name, human?" Park Do-hyun. "Your Majesty." She studied him for a long moment. Then, she did something that had not been done in 3,000 years. "You will sit beside me," she declared. "You are my companion speaker for these negotiations." Chaos erupted around them. But Do-hyun barely heard it. He was too busy staring into the eyes of a queen and wondering what he had just gotten himself into. The great hall exploded into chaos the moment the queen made her announcement. Diplomats shouted. Guards drew weapons. Translators scrambled to explain what was happening to their confused delegations. In the middle of it all, Park Do-hyun stood frozen, staring up at the alien queen who had just changed his life forever. "Your Majesty, this is highly irregular," a Kreth commander growled, stepping forward. His 4 arms were crossed, and his red eyes burned with anger. The companion speaker tradition is sacred to your people. You cannot give it to a human. Queen Seraphiel turned her head slowly to look at him. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. I cannot? She asked softly. Are you telling me what I can and cannot do? Commander? The Kreth opened his mouth, then closed it. Even a warrior race knew better than to challenge a Valori queen directly. The human comes with me, Seraphiel continued. This discussion is over. She turned and walked toward the exit. Do-hyun felt a gentle but irresistible pressure in his mind, guiding him to follow. His legs moved on their own. He walked past Kang Jisoo, whose face had gone white as paper. He walked past the human ambassador, Yoon Mireille, whose expression promised a very difficult conversation later. He walked past aliens who stared at him like he was already dead. The Valori guards fell into formation around them. Within moments, they had left the Great Hall and entered a private corridor reserved for royal delegations. Only when the doors closed behind them did Do-hyun find his voice. Your Majesty, he said carefully. I am honored, but I think there has been a mistake. I am nobody. I am just a translator. I read old documents and help with trade agreements. I am not qualified. You are exactly qualified, the Queen interrupted. She had not stopped walking, and Do-hyun had to hurry to keep pace with her long strides. Do you know what a companion speaker is? The texts say it is someone who speaks for the Queen in matters where she cannot speak directly. A voice without rank, without agenda. Correct. And do you know why the position has been empty for 3,000 years? Do-hyun shook his head. Because in 3,000 years, I have not met a single being whose thoughts were clean enough to trust. She stopped suddenly and turned to face him. In the quiet corridor, her glow was softer, almost gentle. I am telepathic, Park Do-hyun. Not strongly enough to read specific thoughts without effort, but enough to sense intent. Do you know what I sensed from every person in that hall? No, Your Majesty. Greed, fear, ambition, hatred. Every mind was a storm of wanting. They wanted power. They wanted to use me. They wanted to destroy me. Even the ones who smiled and spoke pretty words, especially those ones. Her 4 eyes studied his face. And then I sensed you. What did you sense? Nothing. Do-hyun blinked. Nothing? Nothing selfish. Nothing scheming. You looked at me, and you felt compassion. You saw that I was tired, and you felt sorry for me. Not because you wanted something in return, simply because that is who you are. She tilted her head. Do you have any idea how rare that is? In 2,000 years, I have never encountered a mind like yours. Do-hyun did not know what to say. He had spent his whole life being ordinary, being forgettable, being the person who faded into the background. No one had ever called him rare. Come, the Queen said, resuming her walk. Your quarters have been prepared next to mine. You will need rest. Tomorrow the real negotiations begin. And there are things you must understand before then. The quarters were larger than any room Do-hyun had ever lived in. The walls glowed with soft Valori light, and the furniture was elegant and strange. A window looked out at the stars, and for a moment, Do-hyun just stood there, staring at the infinite darkness. A chime at the door pulled him from his thoughts. He opened it to find 2 human security officers standing outside. Mr. Park? One of them said. Her name tag read, Han Yuna. She was young, maybe his age, with sharp eyes and a stance that suggested military training. Ambassador Yoon wishes to speak with you. Immediately, Do-hyun sighed. He had been expecting this. The ambassador's office was cold and functional, nothing like the Valori quarters. Yoon Mireille sat behind a metal desk, her hands folded, her expression unreadable. She was 55 years old, a veteran of dozens of first contact situations. And right now, she looked at Do-hyun like he was a bomb about to explode. Sit down, she said. He sat. Do you understand what you have done? Her voice was calm, which somehow made it worse. I did not do anything, Ambassador. The Queen chose me. I did not ask for this. It does not matter what you asked for. What matters is what it looks like. She leaned forward. Right now, every species on this station thinks humanity is making a power play. They think we sent you to seduce the Valori Queen, to gain influence over her. The Kreeth are already filing formal complaints. 3 other delegations have requested emergency meetings. That is ridiculous. I am a junior translator. Nobody even knows my name. They know it now. Ambassador Yoon stood and walked to the window, her back to him. Humanity is young in this galaxy, Mr. Park. We have only been part of the galactic community for 80 years. We are small. We are weak. We survive by being careful, by not making waves, by convincing the older species that we are not a threat. I understand. Do you? She turned to face him. The Valori are the most powerful species in the galaxy. Their empire spans 10,000 worlds. They have technology we cannot even imagine. And now their queen has chosen a human as her personal companion. Every eye in the galaxy is watching us. Every enemy we have, and we have many, is looking for a reason to destroy us. Do-hyun felt the weight of her words settle on his shoulders. He had always known that humans were vulnerable in the galaxy, but he had never felt it so directly. What do you want me to do? He asked. I want you to fix this. Refuse the position. Tell the Queen you are not worthy. Make her choose someone else. And if she does not accept my refusal, Ambassador Yoon's jaw tightened. Then you will be on your own. Humanity cannot be seen supporting this. If things go wrong, we will deny any connection to you. You will be sacrificed to protect our people. Do you understand? Do-hyun understood perfectly. He was expendable. He always had been. He returned to his quarters feeling hollow. The stars outside his window seemed cold and distant now. He lay on the strange Valori bed and tried to sleep, but his mind would not stop racing. Around midnight, his door chimed again. He opened it, expecting Lieutenant Han Yuna with another summons. Instead, he found Queen Seraphael standing in the corridor. Alone. May I enter? She asked. Do-hyun stepped aside wordlessly. The Queen glided into his room, her glow dimmed to a soft twilight. Without her guards and her royal bearing, she seemed almost normal. Still tall, still alien, still ancient, but somehow approachable. You spoke with your ambassador, she said. It was not a question. Yes. She wants you to refuse my offer. Yes. Will you? Do-hyun hesitated. He thought about Ambassador Yoon's cold eyes, about the threats against humanity, about his own small and forgettable life. I do not know, he admitted. The Queen nodded as if she had expected this answer. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. They will try to kill you now, she said calmly. My enemies. The Kreeth. Perhaps even some of your own people. The moment I chose you, you became valuable. And valuable things are always targets. You are not making a strong case for accepting your offer. Something like a smile crossed her alien face. No. I suppose not. But before you decide, I need you to understand why I chose you. Not just the reason I gave in public. The real reason. She turned to face him, and her 4 eyes held something Do-hyun had never expected to see in the face of an ancient queen. Fear. My people are dying, she said quietly. And I need your help to save them. The Queen's words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. The Queen's words. Do-hyun stared at her, his mind struggling to process what he had just heard. The Valori were the most powerful species in the galaxy. They had conquered 1,000 worlds. They had technology that seemed like magic. How could they be dying? I do not understand, he said slowly. Your empire is vast. Your people are strong. What could possibly threaten you? Seraphael's glow dimmed until she was barely visible in the darkness. She looked old, Suddenly, impossibly ancient, like a statue that had been standing in the same place for centuries. 200 years ago, a plague began spreading through our population, she said. It does not kill us. It does something worse. It makes us unable to have children. Do-hyun felt his stomach drop. Sterility? 90% of my people cannot reproduce. Those who can produce only one child at most. And those children are often weak. She turned back to the window. We are a long-lived species. A single Valori can live for thousands of years. This made us slow to notice the problem. By the time we understood what was happening, it was already too late. Ended. How many Valori remain? When our empire was at its height, we numbered in the billions. Now? She paused. 8 million. And that number shrinks every year. 8 million. For a species that had once ruled 10,000 worlds, it was nothing. It was extinction, in slow motion. Why has no one heard of this? Do-hyun asked. Because we could not afford to appear weak. The galaxy is not kind to dying empires. If our enemies knew the truth, they would tear us apart. She laughed softly. But there was no humor in it. We have maintained the illusion of strength through technology and reputation alone. Every ship we send out, every display of power, it is all theater. A desperate performance to buy time. Time for what? Time to find a cure. Seraphael turned to face him. And that is where the Kreeth come in. Do-hyun had studied the Kreeth. Everyone had. They were conquerors. Aggressive and brutal. Always hungry for more territory. They had been at cold war with the Valori for 3 centuries, but they had never dared to attack directly. The Kreeth have the cure? He guessed. They have a biological compound that can reverse the plague's effects. We have spent decades trying to create it ourselves, but Kreeth biochemistry is unique. We cannot replicate their formula. The Queen's hands clenched at her sides. They offered to give us the cure. In exchange for our complete subjugation, every Valori world, every piece of technology, every last shred of our dignity, all of it, handed over to them. That is what these negotiations are really about. Yes, the galaxy thinks we are discussing territory disputes and trade agreements. In truth, we are discussing the survival of my entire species. Her voice hardened. Another way. I came here hoping to find another way. Some leverage. Some alternative. But the Kreeth know exactly how desperate we are. They are enjoying watching us squirm. Do-hyun sat down heavily on the edge of his bed. The weight of her words was crushing. He had thought this was about politics. About power games. Between ancient empires. He had not realized he was standing in the middle of a genocide. Why tell me this? He asked. Why trust a human you just met? Seraphael moved closer to him. She knelt down until her 4 eyes were level with his 2, and he could see the exhaustion carved into every line of her alien face. Because of what I sensed in your mind, she said. And because of what I know about your species. What do you know about us? I know that humans are unique in this galaxy. Every other major species rose to power through conquest. The Kreeth conquered their neighbors. The Terran consumed weaker species. Even my people, in our early days, built our empire through war. She paused. But humans did not. You faced a choice between cooperation and extinction, and you chose to work together. Your nations united. Your people learned to see strangers as potential friends rather than enemies. You are the only species in galactic history to achieve faster-than-light travel while still maintaining peace among yourselves. Do-hyun had never thought about it that way. On Earth, human cooperation seemed fragile and imperfect. There was still conflict, still inequality, still suffering, but compared to the rest of the galaxy, you understand survival without submission, Seraphael continued. You know how to find solutions that do not require destroying others. That is why I need you. Not as a diplomat, not as a translator, As a perspective I do not have. Before Do-hyun could respond, a sharp knock came at the door. He opened it to find Lieutenant Han Yuna standing outside, her face tense with urgency. "Mr. Park, we need to move you. Now." "What is happening?" "Our security teams intercepted communications between Kreth agents. They are planning to assassinate you tonight." Her eyes flicked to the Queen. "Both of you, actually. But we think you are the primary target. Killing you would humiliate the Queen and fracture the human-Valori connection before it can form." Serafiel rose to her full height. "Where are these assassins?" "We do not know yet. That is why we need to move." The window exploded inward. Glass and metal flew through the air as 3 figures in black combat suits burst into the room. They moved with terrifying speed, weapons raised, heading straight for Do-hyun. He did not even have time to scream. The first assassin reached him in half a second. A blade flashed toward his throat. Do-hyun saw death coming and knew he could not stop it. Then Serafiel moved. She was faster than anything he had ever seen. One moment she was standing by the window. The next she was between Do-hyun and the assassin, her hand closing around the blade like it was a child's toy. The weapon shattered in her grip. The assassin tried to pull back, but Serafiel caught him by the throat. Her glow erupted into blinding white light. The assassin screamed once, then went limp. The other 2 attackers hesitated for just a moment. It was enough. Lieutenant Han Yuna had her weapon out. 2 shots. 2 bodies hitting the floor. She moved like a machine, precise and deadly, checking each body to make sure they were down. Silence fell over the ruined room. Do-hyun stood in the middle of it all, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might escape his chest. He looked down at the assassin Serafiel had killed. The body was still smoking. "Kreth infiltrators," Yuna confirmed, examining the equipment. "High-end gear. This was a professional operation." Serafiel released the dead assassin and turned to Do-hyun. Her glow was fading back to normal, but her eyes were cold and hard. "You see now," she said quietly. "This is what I face every day. Enemies in the shadows, knives in the dark." Do-hyun looked at the Queen who had just saved his life. He looked at Lieutenant Yuna, who had appeared from nowhere to protect him. He thought about Ambassador Yoon's cold orders, about the galaxy's indifference, about the slow death of an ancient people. He thought about what kind of man he wanted to be. "You asked if I would refuse your offer," he said slowly. "I have decided." "And?" He met her 4 eyes without flinching. "I will be your companion speaker. I do not know if I can help you save your people. I do not know if I am smart enough or brave enough. But I will try." Serafiel's glow shifted through colors he could not name. "It might have been hope. That is all I ask," she said. An alarm began blaring throughout the station. Lieutenant Yuna checked her communicator, and her face went pale. "Something is wrong," she said. "Someone has leaked false evidence to the Assembly. They are saying humans have formed a secret alliance with the Valori against all other species." Through the broken window, Do-hyun could see lights flashing across the station. Emergency signals. Warning beacons. The sound of distant shouting reached his ears. "The Kreth," Serafiel said grimly. "If they cannot kill us, they will turn the galaxy against us." Do-hyun took a deep breath. He had wanted to help. He had wanted to make a difference. Now, he was about to find out what that really meant. "Then we need to move fast," he said. "Tell me everything you know about the plague. There has to be something we are missing." The Galactic Assembly erupted into chaos by morning. Do-hyun watched from a secure room as feeds from across the station showed the damage. Alien delegations were withdrawing. Emergency meetings filled every conference hall. And everywhere, the message was the same. Humans could not be trusted. The false evidence had been cleverly made. Doctored communications showing human officials discussing military alliances with the Valori. Fake recordings of Ambassador Yoon promising to help the Valori conquer weaker species. The forgeries were good enough that even Do-hyun might have believed them if he did not know the truth. "The Terran Collective has withdrawn their diplomatic mission," Lieutenant Han Yuna reported. reading from her tablet. The Cyrics are demanding an emergency tribunal. And the Kreth? She hesitated. What about the Kreth? Do-hyun asked. They have issued an ultimatum. Hand over Park Do-hyun and cut all ties with the Valori within 24 hours. Otherwise, they will impose total economic sanctions on all human colonies. Do-hyun closed his eyes. Earth's colonies were young and fragile. They depended on galactic trade for food, medicine, and technology. Sanctions would mean starvation, death, the end of humanity's expansion into the stars. I should surrender, he said quietly. This is my fault. If giving myself up will protect our people. No. Queen Seraphael's voice cut through the room like a blade. She stood by the window, watching the chaos outside with ancient eyes. Surrendering you would change nothing. The Kreth do not want justice. They want submission. If you go to them, they will execute you publicly, and then make new demands. She is right, Yuna said reluctantly. Our intelligence suggests this is just the first step. The Kreth want to break humanity's spirit, to turn us into their servants, like they want to do with the Valori. The door opened, and Ambassador Yoon Murray entered. She looked like she had not slept in days. Her uniform was wrinkled, her hair coming loose from its careful arrangement, but her eyes were still sharp and dangerous. Mr. Park, she said coldly. I warned you this would happen. Mr. Park, Ambassador, save it. The situation is beyond apologies now. She turned to Seraphael. Your Majesty, with respect, your presence here is making things worse. Every moment you spend with this man adds fuel to the fire. If you truly care about peace, you should distance yourself from humanity. Seraphael's glow flickered. And abandon the first ally I have found in 3,000 years? I think not. Then you doom us all. Perhaps. Or perhaps there is another way. The Queen looked at Do-hyun. Tell me, companion speaker. You have been quiet. What are you thinking? Do-hyun had been thinking hard since the attack last night. He had been running the facts through his mind, looking for patterns, looking for anything that did not fit. The plague, he said slowly. You said it started 200 years ago. Yes. And the Kreth happened to have a cure for it. Also, yes. That is a very convenient coincidence. He looked up at Seraphael. What if it is not a coincidence at all? What if the Kreth created the plague? Kreth. Silence fell over the room. Ambassador Yoon stared at him like he had lost his mind. Lieutenant Yuna's hand moved toward her weapon instinctively, but Seraphael's expression shifted, something ancient and terrible moving behind her eyes. We considered that possibility, she said slowly. But we found no evidence. The plague appeared naturally, as far as we could tell. No offense, Your Majesty, but your people have been dying for 200 years. Maybe you were not looking in the right places. Do-hyun turned to Yuna. Is there a xenobiologist in the human delegation? Someone who specializes in alien diseases? Dr. Choi Eun-ji, Yuna said, after checking her tablet. She is our lead scientist for biological threats. Very good at her job. I need to talk to her. Now. An hour later, Dr. Choi Eun-ji stood before a holographic display showing the molecular structure of the Valori plague. She was small and intense, with glasses that kept slipping down her nose and fingers that never stopped moving. This is brilliant work, she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. What did you find? Do-hyun asked. The plague is not natural. Your instinct was correct. She pulled up a comparison chart. See these genetic markers? They are synthetic. Someone engineered this disease very carefully to target Valori reproductive systems. And the engineering style. She tapped a sequence of data. It matches known Kreth biological weapons research from about 250 years ago. Ambassador Yoon stepped forward. You are certain? 97% certain. The remaining 3% is just scientific caution. In my professional opinion, the Kreth created this plague as a long-term weapon of conquest. They released it, waited for the Valori to weaken, and now they are offering the cure in exchange for total surrender. Dr. Choi's face was grim. It is genocide. In slow motion, Queen Seraphiel stood very still. Her glow had gone cold, shifting through dark blues and purples that Do-hyun had never seen before. 200 years, she whispered. 200 years of watching my people die, wondering what we did wrong, what cosmic punishment we deserved. And all along, it was them. They murdered us and then offered to sell us the antidote. Your Majesty, Do-hyun said carefully, this changes everything. If we can prove this to the Assembly, proof means nothing if no one believes it. Ambassador Yoon shook her head. The Kreth have spent months poisoning the galaxy against us. Even with evidence, the other species will assume we fabricated it. Then we need to get undeniable proof. Something that cannot be dismissed. Do-hyun looked at Lieutenant Yuna. The Kreth delegation has secure files, records of their biological weapons programs. If we could access those files, Yuna's eyes widened. You are talking about infiltrating a hostile delegation's secure systems. That is an act of war. We are already at war. We just have not admitted it yet. The Queen stepped forward. He is right. The Kreth drew first blood long ago. We have been defending ourselves without even knowing it. She looked at Yuna. I will assign 2 of my elite guards to assist. They have technology that can bypass Kreth security. This is insane, Ambassador Yoon said. If you are caught, if we do nothing, my people die, and yours become slaves. Seraphiel's voice was hard as steel. I am done waiting. I am done hoping. Tonight, we take the fight to them. The infiltration began at midnight. Do-hyun had never considered himself brave. He was a translator, a man of words and books and quiet rooms. But here he was, creeping through dark corridors with Lieutenant Yuna at his side and 2 Valori warriors gliding silently behind them. The Kreth delegation occupied the eastern wing of the station. Security was heavy armed guards, scanning systems, automated defenses, but the Valori guards had devices that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible. They moved like ghosts, disabling security nodes, one by one. The main data center is ahead, Yuna whispered. Once we are inside, you will have maybe 5 minutes before they notice the breach. 5 minutes is enough, Do-hyun said, hoping he sounded more confident than he felt. They reached the data center without incident. One of the Valori guards interfaced with the Kreth systems. Her bioluminescent fingers dancing across alien keyboards. Data began flowing: research files, communication logs, secret orders dating back centuries. I have it, she announced. Records of the plague's development, names, dates, everything. Do-hyun felt a surge of hope. They were going to do it. They were going to expose the truth and save both their peoples. Then the lights came on. Kreth soldiers poured into the room from every direction. Do-hyun saw at least 20 of them, all armed, all pointing weapons at his small team, and at their center stood the Kreth High Commander himself, a massive figure in black armor, his 4 arms crossed over his chest, his red eyes gleaming with triumph. Did you really think we would not notice? The commander asked, his voice dripping with contempt. We have been watching you since you left your quarters. This little adventure ends now. No. Do-hyun looked at the weapons pointed at him. He looked at Yuna, who had her hand on her gun but knew she was hopelessly outnumbered. He looked at the Valori guards, who stood ready to fight but could not defeat an army. They had the evidence. But none of that mattered if they died here. You think evidence matters? The commander laughed, as if reading his thoughts. By morning, your species will be erased from this station, and your precious queen will finally kneel before us, or watch her people die knowing she could have saved them. Do-hyun's mind raced. They needed a miracle. They needed something completely unexpected. And then he remembered something the Queen had told him about humans. About how they were unique in the galaxy. About how they found solutions that did not require destroying others. "Wait," he said, stepping forward. "I have a proposal." The Kreth commander laughed at Do-hyun's words. It was an ugly sound, like metal scraping against metal. A proposal? From a dead man? He stepped closer, towering over Do-hyun, with all four arms spread wide. "What could you possibly offer me? A chance to win without firing a shot." Do-hyun kept his voice steady even though his heart was pounding. "Right now, you think you have already won, but you have not. The evidence we found is already being transmitted to backup locations. If we die here, that evidence goes public automatically. Every species in the galaxy will know what you did." The commander's smile faded slightly. "You are bluffing, am I?" Do-hyun glanced at the Valori guard who had accessed the systems. She gave a tiny nod. The upload was complete. "Kill us, and you might silence this moment. But you cannot silence the truth forever. It will come out. And when it does, every species you have bullied and threatened will turn against you." The commander was silent for a long moment. Then he gestured to his soldiers. "Take them, all of them. We will let the assembly decide what to do with them." All designed. All designed. Formant. We can stepsminted. It was not a victory. But it was not death, either. Do-hyun allowed himself to breathe, as the Kreth soldiers bound their hands and led them away. By morning, the situation had gotten worse. The Kreth had moved fast. Before the evidence could spread, they launched a coordinated political strike across the station. False footage appeared, showing humans plotting genocide against multiple species. Recordings that looked completely real, created with technology so advanced that no one could prove they were fake. Panic spread through the station. Human civilians were attacked by frightened mobs. Shops owned by humans were destroyed. Ambassador Yoon was arrested by station security, dragged away in restraints while she shouted about her diplomatic immunity. From his cell, Do-hyun watched it all through a small screen. He saw humans bleeding in corridors. He saw families huddled in emergency shelters. He saw the work of 80 years of careful diplomacy crumbling in a single day. And he knew that evidence alone would not save them. The door to his cell opened. Queen Seraphiel entered, her glow dim and troubled. The Kreth had not dared to imprison her even now. They feared what the Valori might do if pushed too far. "The assembly is gathering for an emergency session," she said. "The Kreth are demanding humanity's expulsion from the galactic community. Permanent exile. No trade, no contact, no protection. What are our options? Very few." She sat down across from him, looking more tired than he had ever seen her. "The evidence we found might create doubt. But doubt is not enough. Too many species have already decided that humans are dangerous. They want someone to blame for their fears. And you are convenient targets." Do-hyun stared at the floor. He thought about his mother, back on Earth, who had worked so hard to give him a better life. He thought about the human children he had seen on this station, laughing and playing with alien friends just days ago. He thought about everything humanity had sacrificed to reach the stars, only to be pushed back into the darkness. "There has to be a way," he said. "There is always a way. Sometimes there is not." "No." He looked up at her with sudden intensity. "You chose me because humans think differently. Because we find solutions others cannot see. So let me think differently now." He stood and paced the small cell. "The Kreth are winning because they control the story. They have made this about fear, fear of humans, fear of change, fear of anything different. Evidence cannot fight fear. Logic cannot fight fear. Then what can? Truth. Not facts and data, but real, honest truth." He stopped pacing. "I need to speak to the assembly. Directly. Not through ambassadors or diplomats. Me, personally. They will not allow it. I have standing as your companion speaker. It is an ancient tradition, you said. I speak with your voice. Your authority. Seraphiel stared at him. You would be standing before thousands of hostile delegates. Every word you say will be examined and attacked. If you fail, there will be no second chances. I know, and if you speak for me, you bind yourself to my people's fate. I know that too. She studied him for a long moment. Then she reached into her robes and pulled out something small and beautiful. A crown made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. This is the crown of truth, she said. An artifact from the earliest days of my people. Anyone who wears it cannot lie. Their words become pure, undeniable truth. But it was made for Valori minds. For a human. She hesitated. It will be painful. Possibly lethal. Find Leader Live 1. From Centabel. For my known. For my known. Do-hyun looked at the crown. It was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Will it make them believe me? It will make it impossible for them not to. He reached out and took it from her hands. The crystal was warm against his skin, humming with ancient power. Then let us go speak some truth. The great hall was packed with delegates from every species. They filled every seat, crowded every walkway, pressed against every wall. The air was thick with tension, and barely contained hostility. When Do-hyun entered wearing the crown of truth, a wave of murmuring swept through the chamber. The Kreeth commander stood on the main platform, his red eyes burning with triumph. This assembly is not for humans, he declared. Remove him. He wears the crown of truth and speaks as my companion speaker, Queen Seraphiel announced, her voice ringing across the hall. By the ancient laws of this assembly, he has the right to be heard. Ma. The commander's face twisted with anger, but he could not argue with traditions older than his species. He stepped aside, and Do-hyun walked to the center of the platform. He looked out at the sea of alien faces. Most were hostile, some were curious. A few, very few, seemed sympathetic. The crown of truth began to glow brighter on his head, and he felt its power reaching into his mind, pulling words from places he had never explored. I am not a diplomat, he began. His voice echoed through the silent hall. I am not a hero. I am just a translator who got noticed by a queen who was too tired to lie anymore. The crown pulsed, confirming his honesty. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. You have been shown evidence that humanity is dangerous. You have been told we plot conquest and destruction, and I could stand here and deny those things. Present counter-evidence. Argue about facts and figures. But that is not why I am here. I am here. He took a deep breath. The crown's power surged through him, and he felt it beginning to hurt. Sharp needles of pain behind his eyes. I am here to tell you the truth about my species. All of it. The good and the bad. What followed was unlike any speech in the history of the Galactic Assembly. The crown forced Do-hyun to speak with absolute honesty about humanity, their wars, their cruelties, their centuries of violence and oppression. He spoke of genocides and slavery and environmental destruction. He spoke of every dark chapter in human history, holding nothing back. The delegates listened in stunned silence. No species had ever confessed so completely to their own failures. But then, his words changed. We have done terrible things, he continued, tears streaming down his face from the crown's pressure. But we have also changed. We looked at our own darkness and chose to be better. We built peace from the ashes of war. We created systems to prevent the worst of ourselves from winning. We are not perfect. We will never be perfect. But we keep trying. He turned to face the Kreeth commander directly. The Valori are dying because someone poisoned them 200 years ago. The evidence we found proves it was the Kreeth. They created a plague to slowly kill an entire species, and then offered to sell them the cure. That is the truth. And every being in this hall can see that I cannot lie while wearing this crown. The commander's face went pale. Around the hall, delegates began whispering furiously. "You can choose to believe the Kreth," Do-hyun said, his voice breaking with pain. "But I promise you with every fiber of my being, humans want to be your friends, not your masters. We want to build a galaxy where every species can survive and grow. We want to be better than we were." The crown's glow reached blinding intensity. Blood began dripping from Do-hyun's nose and ears. He felt his vision fading. "Please," he whispered. "Please do not let fear win." He collapsed on the platform, the crown tumbling from his head. The last thing he heard before darkness took him was a single voice cutting through the silence. "I call for an investigation into the Kreth Dominion." It was a Syrinx delegate, the Syrinx ancient enemies of humanity, and they were asking for justice. Do-hyun woke up in a medical bay with bright lights burning above him and a terrible headache pounding behind his eyes. For a long moment, he could not remember where he was or what had happened. Then, the memories came flooding back the crown. The speech, the blood dripping from his face as he begged a galaxy to believe him. "Easy." A gentle hand pressed against his shoulder. "Do not try to move yet." Quote. He turned his head and saw Dr. Choi Eun-ji standing beside his bed, checking monitors with worried eyes. "How long was I unconscious?" he asked. His voice came out rough and broken. 18 hours. The crown nearly killed you. Your brain was bleeding. We had to operate twice." She shook her head. "You are either the bravest man I have ever met, or the most foolish. Can it be both?" She almost smiled. "Yes, it can definitely be both." The door opened, and Lieutenant Han Yuna entered, followed by Queen Seraphiel. The Queen's glow had returned to its normal brightness. But there was something different in her eyes, a warmth that had not been there before. "He is awake," Yuna reported. "I told you he was too stubborn to die. I never doubted it." Seraphiel moved to Do-hyun's bedside. "Your speech changed everything." The assembly voted to investigate the Kreth. It was narrow, only 12 votes in our favor, but it was enough. What happens now? Now the Kreth are desperate. And desperate enemies are dangerous enemies. Yuna's expression grew serious. "We have intelligence that the Kreth commander is planning something. Some kind of final strike to destroy the evidence and eliminate key witnesses before the investigation can proceed." As if summoned by her words, alarms began blaring across the station. Red lights flashed. Emergency announcements crackled through speakers in a dozen languages. "All delegates shelter in place. Security breach in multiple sectors." This is not a drill. Yuna checked her communicator, and her face went pale. Kreth. Sleeper agents. They are attacking simultaneously across the station, targeting human civilians and assembly delegates who voted for the investigation. "How many agents?" Do-hyun asked, already struggling to sit up despite the pain. "Dozens, maybe more." She looked at Seraphiel. "They are trying to create chaos, to make it look like humans are the attackers. Same strategy as before, but with violence this time. Then we need to stop them." Do-hyun swung his legs off the bed. "You can barely stand," Dr. Choi protested. "I will stand anyway." The next few hours were the most chaotic of Do-hyun's life. The station had become a battlefield. Kreth agents moved through corridors, attacking anyone they encountered, leaving false evidence to implicate humans. Emergency services were overwhelmed. Communication systems were jammed. It was exactly the kind of chaos that could destroy everything they had worked for. But something unexpected happened. Human security forces, led by Lieutenant Yuna, did not just defend human civilians. They protected everyone. When a group of Terran delegates came under attack, human soldiers rushed to save them. When a Moken family was trapped by a fire the agents had set, human emergency workers risked their lives to pull them out. Do-hyun watched from the command center as reports came in from across the station. Humans helping Syrinx, humans defending Terran, humans standing between Kreth assassins and the very aliens who had called for their exile just hours ago. "This is incredible," Ambassador Yoon whispered. She had been released from custody when the attack began, and now she stood beside Do-hyun, watching the feeds with tears in her eyes. I did not order this. These are just our people choosing to help. That is what humans do, Seraphael said quietly. You help. Even when it costs you. Even when the ones you help have been your enemies. It is maddening and beautiful, and completely unlike anything else in this galaxy. The Kreeth commander realized too late that his plan was failing. Instead of turning the galaxy against humanity, his attack was proving Do-hyun's speech right. Species that had feared humans hours ago were now seeing them as protectors, as allies, as friends worth having. The final confrontation came in the main reactor chamber, where the commander had set up his last stand. He had taken hostages, a group of mixed-species children who had been visiting the station on an educational trip. Do-hyun was the one who walked in to face him. Let them go, he said, his voice calm despite his exhaustion. This is over. Your agents have been captured. Your lies have been exposed. There is nothing left to win. The commander held a weapon to a young Valori child's head. I can still kill them. I can still make you suffer. You can. But it will not save you. Do-hyun took a step closer. I watched you during the negotiations. You are not evil. You are afraid. Your people are afraid. You see the universe as a competition where only the strongest survive, and you have done terrible things because you thought you had no choice. Do not pretend to understand me, human. I understand you better than you think. My species spent thousands of years believing the same thing. Kill or be killed. Conquer or be conquered. We nearly destroyed ourselves with that thinking. Another step closer. But we found another way. And you can too. The commander's weapon trembled slightly. It is too late for us. The things we have done. It is never too late. The Valori have every reason to hate you forever. But if you surrender now, if you help us find a cure for the plague you created, maybe there can be something other than war. Do-hyun held out his hand. Choose. Choose something different. For a long, terrible moment. Everything hung in the balance. Then Queen Seraphael entered the chamber. She had revealed her full power for the first time in centuries. Her glow was blinding. Her presence overwhelming. Ancient energies crackling around her like a living storm. She could have destroyed the commander with a thought. Everyone in the room knew it. Instead, she spoke softly. I watched my people die for 200 years because of what your kind did to us. She said, I have more right to hatred than anyone in this galaxy. But I am tired of hating. I am tired of being alone in my anger. She looked at the commander with 4 eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. If you can help us live, I am willing to let you live too. The weapon fell from the commander's hands. The crisis was over. In the aftermath, Dr. Choi Eun-ji made a remarkable discovery. While analyzing the plague cure, she found that human DNA contained a unique protein that could accelerate the treatment's effectiveness. It would require willing human donors, blood samples, tissue cultures, nothing dangerous, but it could save thousands of additional Valori lives. She announced her finding, expecting a handful of volunteers. Within an hour, over 200 humans had signed up. They came from every part of the station: security officers, diplomats, maintenance workers, teachers. They came knowing there was no reward, no benefit, no advantage to be gained. They came because someone needed help, and they could give it. A Terran delegate approached Do-hyun in the recovery center, where he was watching the volunteer list grow. We thought your kind were dangerous because you were violent, the Terran said, their compound eyes studying him with new understanding. We were wrong. You are dangerous because you care too much. You care so much that you make others want to care too. That is terrifying. Do-hyun smiled despite his exhaustion. Is it terrifying in a bad way? The Terran considered this for a long moment. No. Not in a bad way. No. It was perhaps the strangest compliment he had ever received. As the station slowly returned to normal, Queen Seraphiel found Do-hyun sitting alone on an observation deck, watching the stars. "My people are voting," she said, settling beside him, "on something that has never been proposed before in our entire history." "What are they voting on?" She looked at him with those four ancient eyes, and for the first time, he saw something there that looked almost like joy. "They are voting on whether to offer humanity something we have never offered anyone, a true partnership, a bond between equals." Do-hyun felt his heart skip. "And what do you think they will decide?" "I think they will say yes." She turned back to the stars. "And I think that might just change everything." 3 months had passed. Since the chaos on the stellar accord, the station had been rebuilt, its scars healed, its corridors once again filled with aliens of every kind moving peacefully together. But nothing was the same as before. Something fundamental had changed in the way the galaxy saw itself. Do-hyun stood in front of a mirror in his new quarters, adjusting the collar of his formal uniform. The face looking back at him was different from the one he remembered. A thin scar ran from his left temple to his cheekbone, a reminder of the crown of truth and what it had cost him. His eyes seemed older somehow, carrying the weight of everything he had witnessed. He still walked with a slight limp from his injuries. The doctors said it might never fully heal. He did not mind. It was a small price to pay. A chime at his door announced a visitor. He opened it to find Lieutenant Han Yuna standing outside in her own formal dress uniform, looking uncomfortable with all the medals they had pinned to her chest. "Ready?" she asked. "No, but I do not think that matters." She almost smiled. "It never does." They walked together through the station, joining a stream of delegates all heading toward the Great Hall. The same hall where Do-hyun had first caught the Queen's eye. The same hall where he had collapsed wearing the crown of truth. Today, it would witness something unprecedented. The hall was packed even more tightly than it had been during the crisis. Every species in the galactic community had sent representatives. Cameras floated through the air, broadcasting the event to billions of beings across thousands of worlds. History was about to be made, and everyone wanted to see it. Do-hyun took his place on the main platform, standing beside a delegation of human officials. Ambassador Yoon Mireille was there, fully restored to her position, and wearing a new dignity that the crisis had given her. Dr. Choi Eun-ji stood nearby, recognized across the galaxy, now for her role in developing the improved plague cure. Even Kang Jisoo, his old supervisor, had come, though she kept shaking her head in disbelief every time she looked at him. The hall fell silent as Queen Seraphiel entered. She moved with the same grace Do-hyun remembered from their first meeting. But her glow was different now, brighter, warmer, carrying colors that spoke of hope rather than exhaustion. Behind her walked a group of Valori children, the first generation to be born healthy in over a century. They looked around the great hall with wide, curious eyes, seeing wonders their parents had never expected them to live to see. The Queen took her place at the central podium. For a long moment, she simply looked out at the assembled delegates, her four eyes sweeping across the vast chamber. 3 months ago, this station nearly tore itself apart, she began. Her voice carried effortlessly to every corner of the hall. Fear and lies and ancient hatred brought us to the edge of destruction. Many of you were ready to exile humanity from our community. Many of you believed they were dangerous, untrustworthy, unworthy of standing among us. She paused, letting her words settle. You were right. Humans are dangerous. A ripple of confusion passed through the crowd. Do-hyun felt his heart skip. They are dangerous because they look at the universe differently than we do. They see enemies and imagine friends. They see obstacles and imagine bridges. They see dying strangers and offer their own blood to save them. Her glow intensified. They are dangerous because they make us question everything we thought we knew about strength and power, and what it means to survive. She turned to look directly at Do-hyun. I chose a human as my companion speaker because I was tired and lonely and wanted someone who saw me as more than a weapon or a prize. It was a selfish choice. I did not expect anything to come of it. Her voice softened. But Park Do-hyun showed me something. I had forgotten, in 2,000 years of ruling. He showed me that true strength is not about how many enemies you can destroy, it is about how many friends you can make. She raised her hand, and a document appeared in the air above her, glowing text in 100 languages, visible to everyone in the hall. The Valori Empire hereby offers humanity a bond of equals, a partnership of mutual defense, shared technology, and cultural exchange. This bond has never been offered to any species in our history. We reserve it for those we consider our true peers. She looked out at the assembly. After what I have witnessed, I can think of no species more deserving. The hall erupted in cheers and protests, and stunned silence, all mixed together. But the document was real, and the Queen's words were clear, and nothing would ever be the same again. Later, after the formal ceremonies were complete, and the documents were signed, and the celebrations had begun, Do-hyun found himself on a quiet balcony overlooking the stars. The sounds of the party drifted through the air behind him, music and laughter, and voices in dozens of languages, human and alien alike, sharing joy together. He heard soft footsteps behind him, and knew without turning who it was. "You should be inside," Queen Seraphile said, moving to stand beside him. "They are calling you the hero of the hour. I am not comfortable with that title. I know. That is part of why you deserve it." They stood in silence for a while, watching distant stars wheel slowly through the void. So much had changed since that first day in the Great Hall. Do-hyun had been nobody then, a forgotten translator hiding behind a pillar. Now his face was known across the galaxy. His name would be in history books. His speech would be studied for centuries. It all felt unreal, like a dream he might wake from at any moment. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "Now the real work begins." Seraphiel's glow shifted to soft, contemplative colors. "The Kreth Dominion is being restructured. Their leaders will face justice for what they did to my people. But there will be no genocide, no revenge, no endless cycle of hatred. We are trying something new: accountability without destruction. Humans call it restorative justice, I believe. It will not be easy. Nothing worth doing ever is." She turned to face him. "The first generation of healthy Valori children in a century are alive because humans volunteered their blood and tissue without asking for anything in return. Do you understand what that means to us? For 200 years, we believed we were dying alone. Now we know we have friends willing to suffer so that we might live." Do-hyun thought about the volunteers he had seen, ordinary people who had given parts of themselves to save strangers. They had not done it for glory or reward. They had done it because it was the right thing to do. "That is just who we are," he said. "We are not perfect. We are not always good. But we try. Yes." The Queen smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine, unlike anything he had seen from her before. "You try. Gloriously, wonderfully, stubbornly try. My people have lived for millennia believing we were superior to all other species. It took humans, a species younger than some of our architecture, to show us what true strength looks like. We are just stubborn," Do-hyun said, smiling back. She laughed. It was a beautiful sound, musical and bright. And Do-hyun realized it was probably the first time a non-Valori had heard a Valori queen laugh in recorded history. "Yes," she agreed. "Gloriously, wonderfully stupid. Never change." The door behind them opened, and Ambassador Yoon appeared. "They are asking for you both inside. Something about a joint speech to close the ceremonies." Do-hyun looked at Seraphiel. She looked back at him. Two people from different worlds, different species, different lives, yet somehow, against all odds, they had become friends. "Shall we?" she asked, offering her hand. He took it. Together, they walked back into the light and noise of the celebration. Back to a galaxy that was learning, slowly and painfully, to be better than it had been. Back to a future that was uncertain and difficult and full of challenges they could not yet imagine. But they walked together. And that made all the difference. As they entered the hall, Do-hyun caught sight of himself in a reflective surface, a scarred, limping translator, standing beside an ancient alien queen. Both of them, about to address the gathered representatives of 1,000 worlds. They had told him not to go near her. But sometimes, the universe did not need warriors or conquerors. Sometimes, it just needed someone brave enough to sit down and listen.